Welcome to Open Your Reality. This is a quick 10-minute video on the basics of simulation theory, featuring Tom Campbell. I'm a strong proponent of simulation theory, and many of my videos go into detail on it. My main influence or mentor in this field is Tom Campbell, who really knows the ABCs of simulation theory, having written a trilogy of books on it. Tom is a scientist and consciousness researcher who has given talks around the world for the past decade explaining simulation theory while answering endless amounts of questions on it. I picked out a segment of Tom talking at the Monroe Institute some years back. I chose it because it gives a very good summation of the basics of simulation theory. If you are familiar with Tom or know about the theory, it will be a refresher, and it's always good to listen to something like this again. If you are new to Tom and the theory, then this information will be really helpful to you in understanding the basics of simulation theory explained by the man himself. The disclosure starts with Tom talking about his son playing an elf in World of Warcraft. Tom often uses video games as metaphors to describe simulation theory, which you'll soon see is very helpful. So without further chatter from me, here's Tom.
Now, the roles here is that the elf that my son was playing, is called an avatar. And my son was playing the role of that avatar's consciousness. That avatar doesn't do anything, just stands there unless my son tells him what to do. Run, go left, go right, look up, look down, whatever. Otherwise, without any instructions, does nothing. He was then, my son was then the consciousness of that elf that's an avatar. So that's one interesting thing about a virtual reality, is that you have avatars, which are just computations, and then you have consciousness, which makes the choices. Now, another thing about virtual reality is that you have to have a computer that's making the avatar, right? That's developing the game. And this computer cannot be in the same reality frame as the avatar. So this elf is never going to find the computer or the server that's producing him in the world, inside his reality frame. It's got to be, as Fredkin said, it's got to be outside of this reality frame. So the computer can't be, well, in our sense, if we're avatars, right? If our bodies are avatars, then the computer can't be physical, can't be in this physical universe, has to be outside this physical universe in some other reality frame. And if it's not in this physical universe, we call that non-physical. So to the elf, the server has to be non-physical. Can't be same level of reality as the elf. Also, the consciousness, the player, and the computer, the server, have to be in the same reality frame, because what they're doing is passing messages back and forth, right? The player says, elf, jump, and that command goes to the computer. The computer then changes the picture, and the elf jumps. And the computer also computes the ramifications, the consequences of the elf jumping, or fighting, or running, or doing whatever. So if it's elf run, and the elf runs right into a tree, then the computer has to compute damage. The elf is hurt now. And how much damage has it done? Does it kill the elf? Does it just hurt him? And of course, in World of Warcraft, that's done by hit points. You become weaker with fewer hit points. So anyway, the consciousness and the computer have to be in the same reality frame, and that reality frame has to be non-physical to the elf. Now the elf, the avatar, and his whole reality frame, all the trees and rocks and fish and everything that's in that, all the characters, all the avatars, they just exist as data on a hard drive someplace. Now that data is changing, it's constantly updated and changing as the elf jumps and runs and does different things and interacts with other characters and some computer-generated characters. So that it's always changing, but it's just a bunch of ones and zeros somewhere. That's all that reality is. Okay, now if we make that translation of what I've just told you to our reality, these bodies are avatars. What we are is the consciousness. We're making choices. Okay? And we don't do anything without our consciousness saying, Raise your right arm, lower your right arm. That's your consciousness. The consciousness says, or sends a message to the computer, I want to raise my right arm. The computer then does the video, right? The arm goes back down, and the consequences. So that's the way it works. And the computer then sends the image back to the player. So the player sees the arm go up and the arm go down. So all you have really is a player and a computer exchanging information, and the computer computes the consequences and shows the interaction, shows the arm going up, or the elf running into the tree, or two elves fighting with each other, or whatever's going on in the game. Okay? Now that's the way our reality works. We are consciousness. That's why I say we don't have to get out of our body. You know? This body is just ones and zeros in a virtual reality someplace. Okay? Now you might think, well, that doesn't make sense, because we know that, you know, if you get hit in the head with a iron pipe, it'll affect you, right? Your consciousness can't just say, oh no, I didn't get hit in the head. Well, if your elf runs into a tree, there's a problem. It gets affected. And if the elf runs into that tree, or jumps off a cliff, or gets, you know, hit with an axe, or all the things that can happen to elves in that game, well, there are consequences, you see? And those consequences come, sometimes it'll kill your elf. And you have to run back to the graveyard. Your elf pops up in the graveyard, and then you take your little ghost self and you run back to the site of your death, and you grab up all your tools and money and gear, and now you're back in the game again. You see, you start playing. Well, we do sort of the same thing. See, consciousness is immortal. Consciousness doesn't die with the body. It's just a virtual body computed in a computer. Any more than the elf dies. I mean, what does it mean for an elf to die in a virtual reality game? You know, the elf's not alive to begin with. It's just ones and zeros on a hard drive someplace. The consciousness is what makes the choices. That's what's alive, if you will, and that goes on. And when the body dies, then it goes, you know, gets back in the game and picks another avatar and goes on again. So they're very similar. These are just basic ways of virtual realities work. So now we've hit a whole lot of points here about our reality. Now, okay, who's the programmer, right, for this virtual reality? What's the programmer? Who's the programmer? And why? Why is this program running? What's the point? Well, the answer to those is the larger consciousness system is the programmer. We, consciousness, are just a piece of that system. We're just a chunk of consciousness, chip off the old block, and we are the players of this game. So that's who's running. And how did it get there? In other words, did this larger conscious system program this thing like World of Warcraft is programmed? No. It evolved. Okay? Evolution is the driver of all of this. Consciousness is an evolving system. It's a natural system. It's finite. It's not infinite. It's imperfect. It's not perfect. It's an evolving, real system. And you start with some initial conditions. That would be a plasma that has, you know, a certain amount of pressure, a certain amount of temperature, a certain amount of volume. And then you have a rule set that says, how does energy exchange in this virtual reality? That's basically our physics, our biology, all of that. And then you hit the run button. And when you hit that run button, the rule set says all that pressure will start to expand. And when it does, and the rest of it is the Big Bang you're all familiar with, right? As it expands, it coalesces, and the gases cool, and they become suns, and then some become planets, and the gravity, they circle around each other in orbits, and so on. And then eventually there's some planet that's just about the right distance from a sun and has all the right elements in it, and you know, the right kind of molecule, some sort of combination probably of carbon and hydrogen, starts the first cell. We get a cell, and then everything else evolves, which we know, which is our biology, our theory of evolution, and here we are sitting in this room. All that's done in a computer. It's all a simulation, and it's still evolving. It's still going on. just as the larger conscious system is still evolving.
Well, I trust you found this talk from Tom Campbell very interesting. Although I've studied simulation theory for years, I still get a rise every time I hear Tom talk about it. If you want to see more videos on simulation theory, check out my playlist in the description. I just want to let you guys know I'm very appreciative for all your support and your thoughtful comments. If you like this video, please give it a like. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, well, what are you waiting for? Alright all, I'll see you in the next video, coming soon.